Welcome to the Hackiversity Podcast, where students learn how to achieve more by doing less in college. Learn the hacks from wildly successful recent college graduates as your host, Kyle Winey, explores the colleges, majors, and paths that produce the biggest results in college using less effort. It's hacking time.
What's up, college hackers? Welcome to the Hackiversity Podcast, where I, Kyle Winey, show students how to achieve more by doing less in college. Today, I'm super fortunate to have on the show Tyler Schmitt. In less than a year after graduation, Tyler scored a job with social icon Gary Vaynerchuk, where Tyler works today. Shortly after landing this position, Tyler grew to become Gary's right-hand man and currently works alongside Gary on all the latest projects, including meeting power players, working on multi-million-dollar deals, and learning from the best in the business. My favorite part of Tyler's story is that it demonstrates that in the new economy, students adopting the right college approach can rise quickly through the ranks and be an impact player in less time. I often like to think that this podcast is designed as a platform to advocate to students that the American dream is still alive and show them how to obtain it. During this episode, Tyler and I explore, first, how to network even with people with whom you've never spoken. Second, how to efficiently and effectively use grades to drive a successful college career. And third, how to leverage conversations and networking to score a job with an elite company like VaynerMedia, the company in which Gary Vaynerchuk founded. Without further ado, let's dig in. Tyler, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So Tyler, one of my goals of the podcast is to show college students that you don't have to be 65 years old to be tremendously accomplished in a field. So that's why I always ask my guests how old they are. So how old are you?
I love it. I am 26.
26. Cool.
Yeah.
So Tyler, let's start with your college experience. So you graduated in 2013 from Penn State. Go Lions.
Yeah.
Baby. With a degree in hotel, restaurant, and institutional management, which has got to be one of the longest name majors at Penn State.
HRIM, they called it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Tyler, walk me through why you went to Penn State. I obviously love Penn State, but tell me what drew you there.
Yeah, so I was, from the pretty much day I became conscious, I was going to go to Penn State. My dad, who is like my best friend in the world, is from a large family, one of 9. We all live in the same area. He's got 3 brothers that I'm very close with and look up to tremendously. They all went to Penn State as well as one of my cousins growing up. So ever since I was very young, we used to go out there all the time for football games, and it's just an absolutely amazing place. And so my whole life, it was Penn State, Penn State, Penn State, Penn State, Penn State. And then I have an older sister that is 2 years older than me. And she ended up going there, actually. She went and visited a ton of schools, saw a bunch of different places. Never really was like, I'm going to Penn State. I was always like, that's the only place I'm going to. She ended up going there. Then it was actually, I did decently well in high school, did a lot of whatever extracurriculars and had decent grades. It was the only school that I applied to at all. I applied the first day that the application process opened on September 30th, and I didn't hear back until February 17th, which was a very stressful process. But it was the only place I was going to go. My mom wanted to chop my head off because towards the end of the process, it was, you're either going to get into Penn State or I'm going to take a year off. My dad was, he advocated for, look, taking a year off isn't the worst thing, get another year under my belt of just experience in life. And so that was that. And so my older sister went there. My younger sister's a junior there now. It's absolutely one of my favorite just organizations as a campus and as a community.
I love that you fell in love with that place at the very beginning because it is such a special place. So Tyler, when people think about schools like Penn State, they're really big. There's a lot of students there. I think a lot of students can get intimidated by that. And so what do you tell someone who is looking to go to a big school like Penn State?
I think that by all means, I think that everywhere you go, it's going to be the same game. You got to find your kind of lanes to play in and make the place small. And so what I think that is the best about Penn State is that, again, like I keep going back to, across the board from the clubs, the schools, the extracurriculars, all of them are pushing the needle at the top of whatever ranking you look at. And so there's so many different avenues and opportunities for things to do. And the resources at the university are tremendous. And so I can't necessarily speak for all other big schools, but I would just say the recommendation I would give in that sense is that if you go to a school with 4,000 people, you're going to find a group of 20 that you're going to hang out with. If you go to a school with 40,000 people, you're going to end up finding a group of 20 people that you hang out with. And I also won't go so far to say that every 40,000 person school has top-notch stuff across the board. That was just the deal with Penn State, and I'm lucky to have had that. And everything's different for everyone else. I went there. I was not going to go anywhere else. So I don't know what the thought of going to a small liberal arts school, I'm blanking on where my mom went. She went in Saratoga. I'm sorry. My mom's going to yell at me. Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Bob.
I don't know what like a small, liberal school has to offer in that sense, but I just think that any large organization you end up in, you're going to find your lane and run with it.
Yeah.
It's the same deal in work that I'm doing now, 800 person organization. There's pockets of 20 and 30 people throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get to the work that you're doing right now because I think it's awesome. But going back to Penn State, so I think that's so true, Tyler, about kind of finding your lane, finding your people, and building a community around you. And so I think that's what you did by your fraternity, because I know that you served as your fraternity's president. So can you talk about what it meant to serve as your fraternity's president, how you found those people, and how you kind of built a community in the Greek world?
Yeah, so it's funny. My Greek life, fraternity life experience is vastly different than I'd say most people's. And that was really what I think I've mimicked what I did there or tried to throughout kind of my whole time. And so, again, it was funny. I was in the fraternity, the same one that my two uncles were in. And so it was a familiar thing. I'd been to the house when I grew up, and it was the only real place that I had interest in rushing. I would say I love my family to death. It's all that matters. I wanted to share those experiences with my family. And so I was rushing that house, and all my friends from my floor freshman year that you are friends with for your first 3 weeks, everyone has the same experience when they go to their freshman year. They become best friends with the people that live across the hall. And then by the end of the year, they don't talk to each other. But all those kids were checking out everything. And I don't do well with a lot of options. Like my worst moment of time, like I get the most anxiety when I have to look at a restaurant menu. I hate making a lot of those decisions. But I was rushing this house, and then when on like the last night of rush, they had a big party, and it was a Friday night, and a kid left the house late at night and went missing for 2 days. And it was a big story, and they found him Monday morning, passed away on campus. And
yeah, I remember that. That was really tragic.
Yeah, and so it was a big story, and all my friends at the time were like, well, that's that. I'm not going to do that, and went on to other houses. And I thought about it for a lot, and I remember perfectly clearly the conversation I had with my father about, look, this could be a massive opportunity to gain experience and do something that, people aren't going to want to do, right? So immediately everyone on campus wrote the house off as finished. Entire Greek life looked at the house as the reason that now all of the party rules were changed and this, that, and the other thing, and became the black eye and the dark, the ugly duckling of Greek life. And And I looked at it as I can join a house and make an immediate impact and try to be a leader at an incredibly young age. And if it goes south, it goes south. What's there to lose for me? And so I did that. And immediately, within 12 months as a sophomore, I became president. And the house went from 40 people to 30 people to 25 people to, at one point, 16 people living in a 22-person, absolutely beautiful Victorian old home on campus at Pennsylvania State University. I was like, this is amazing.
It is
right?
beautiful.
But I had to
it is beautiful. I can attest to that.
It was amazing. Like, I will never live in a better setup than I lived in that house as a sophomore in college, as the president of a fraternity at Pennsylvania State University. Like, it was like insane. But I wasn't always like this big partier, and I just saw it as an opportunity. And so as a sophomore versus as a senior, which most of the presidents were, I was having to have meetings with, the president of the IFC and do all these different things while our fraternity was under scrutiny from the international board, and just put into all these positions that I had no means being in at a young age and having to lead people. And that's exactly what the position that I wanted to put myself in. And so that's why I did that. But I also, it was funny, as I went through that whole thing, I was not a Greek life guy. Like, when you think of a frat guy, I just don't classify myself as that. I found success in staying absolutely busy at all moments, and that's kind of led me to where I am right now, and trying to understand where there's opportunity, to be in a position that most people or society, and I'll probably say the word society, which I deem as just like common thought, probably thought I wasn't deserving of. And I thought I could put myself in a position by going that route, and I did, and it was incredibly fruitful for me and just learnings.
Yeah, I think that's so key that you, Tyler, I guess just had the insight to look at some real tragedy that is, a death of a college student, and say, you know what, rather than this being the undoing of an entire organization, rather than this completely altering my college trajectory for the worse, I'm actually going to lean into this, and I am going to embrace the possibility that could exist. And I think that is such a valuable takeaway, and I think the fruit of that is just so evident with what that approach can do for students. So I think that is really great. Tyler, let's. I want to unpack more a bit about your position as a president. So one of the things that I always like to instruct and like to harp on for the audience is that it's so critical for college students to have leadership positions, but not just necessarily leadership positions, but you can really supercharge your marketability if you have a leadership position with a great name like president that really captures people's attention. So how have you used being your fraternity's president to your advantage in the marketplace?
To be honest, I didn't use it at all. Like, I didn't, for me, it wasn't so much about the title as it was the just pressure positions that I was going to constantly be put in, right? I vaguely remember being thrown out of and screamed out of the head of the interfraternity council that was, a grown man, 45, working for the university, and we were having these meetings about, the future of the organization. And I felt that we weren't getting the fair shakeout, and I had to stick to my guns, or I could have just folded and followed his lead. And for me, it was cool. I'm going to be president, so I'm going to be looked at to make certain decisions in positions that I probably might not be, I was 18. Like, and most presidents were like 21 or 20, and
that's a big difference.
That's 2 years matters more than when it does in your first 50 years of your life. And so it wasn't so much of that, but at the same time, I do think like being the president puts you into those positions. So that was that. It was the title allowed me to have to step up or shut up. And that's the only thing that, like, when I'm talking, if for anyone that's listening, that's either high school or college or what have you, I just truly feel that put yourself in as many positions that everyone thinks you won't succeed in, and just do it for yourself. And just that's what, I'm constantly, that every day I'm with the work that I'm doing now, it's like an impossible task. but it's just hard in the rock, hard in the rock, hard in the rock.
Baptism by fire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just kind of put yourself in those positions and you just figure out a way to do it, figure out a way to win.
Yeah, there's no other option. As the president, you were the only guy. And so I had this whole organization that it was like I had to make the calls for. And so at a young age, that was fantastic. And then at the same time, in correlation, I did I was always a big-time lacrosse player growing up, but I wasn't a quote-unquote leader. I looked at myself but my actions in high school didn't map that way, I would say. I got in some trouble, and so I was never the captain or what have you. And then I got to school freshman year, and I wasn't doing anything. I was just at a big school, partying, going through the motions, and I got like a 2-1, and I almost failed out. And then but I always wanted to, right away, I joined the fraternity like I'm going to become the president, and I did that. And then Penn State hired, who is, I would say, the person I look up to most in life. That's just taught me so much. Head coach Jeff Tambroni came over from Cornell after a Final Four run, and again talked to my dad and was like, "You should call him and try to get to know him right now, right?" And so I shot him an email and went to his office, and I was like, "Is there any way I can get involved?" And he was like, "Be the manager." And so the start of my sophomore year, I was the president of the fraternity and on a full-time varsity, collegiate sport, and was working 65 hours a week. And
so you scored that position.
My whole life changed at that moment.
You scored that position with the lacrosse team simply by sending out an email. Is that right?
Yeah. I shot him a cold email. How can I help? I have this big background. Lacrosse is my whole life. I'm no longer playing and I'm floundering, and how can I help? And I went there and he said, "You can come on full time to the team as manager. Do you want to do it?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Go home and sleep on it first." And I hit him up the next morning and said, "Yeah." And so I went from being a college kid with nothing going on, with a 2.1 GPA after 1 year, likely to fail out on academic probation, to the manager of the hottest lacrosse coach in the game and the president of a fraternity all at once, and having to do 3 years of school within 4 years, or 4 years of school within 3 years. And so the punchline of all that was like, now I just try to squeeze the absolute every ounce of juice out of every day, because if I don't, I just know I fall into complacency. And I've just learned so much from that. And I just don't see myself looking back. And that was like the biggest change. And again, that was a new coach. I just was like, opportunity. I've been here 1 year. He hasn't been here 1 year. How can I help? How can I provide value there? Find spaces that you feel you can be in a position that you probably don't deserve to be in, and keep being there.
Yeah. I think, Tyler, that's such a great point that, we talk a lot about networking, and, students always ask, well, really, what does that mean practically? And I think you just, hit the nail on the head that you went to the coach and said, how can I help you? Let me be of value to you. And and I think when students come with something to add, some kind of value prop, that really opens up doors, just like it did for you. So how can students frame their message to someone like the lacrosse coach or some other kind of person of authority or power, and package their message in such a way that it's appealing, that they can actually in fact provide value?
Yeah, I think especially for like the freshmen at college, right? You go in, you're going to be a biology major. Great. You have these lofty goals. You're going to be a biology major. Everyone's asking you what you're going to do for your career, even though you have no like real idea or understanding. And 99% of the people who say what they're going to be as a freshman aren't going to end up being that. You're a biology major, but you loved playing video games. There's definitely a professor on campus somewhere in, video game engineering or something, and you have all that knowledge. Step out of your lane of biology and go ask them to help them, and stick close to that. And it's hard to provide value in an area where you don't know what you're talking about. But I knew an incredible amount about lacrosse, and I was passionate about it. And so I put myself there. And I loved communicating and meeting and talking with people and helping people out and being of service. I always worked in restaurants, whatever, and I loved leadership. And I just was lucky to work for a lot of mentors. And so I was like, I'm going to try and be the president and take this on. And so that was, I think that not, 80%, whatever, most people are just going to want to be in the middle and not take on a lot of responsibility. And the people that are going for it are the ones that put themselves out of their comfort zone at all times. Every day. I used to write in my journal every day. Make yourself uncomfortable. Make yourself uncomfortable. Make yourself uncomfortable. And that was that. And so providing value, I think, when you put it on yourself to have to do that, it becomes easier to do it,
Yeah. I think that's great. So Tyler, when, it sounded like your college experience was just packed with so many different demands. You had your lacrosse activities, you had your fraternity activities, and then of course the academic activities too. So how did you, or let me ask it this way, what was kind of the calculus that went through your mind when you were approaching as to how to allocate your time, how to allocate your attention?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people ask me that now in work. What systems do you use? What patterns do you use? What apps do you use? How do you keep up with stuff? I am of the kind of school of like, I never try to stay within a process within anything in life for too long, because right when you get comfortable with it, it's not effective any longer, right? So like you talk about building habits and all that. I don't know, like I don't think having certain habits about how you do things is always the best. I like to get right up to the point of it becoming a habit and then changing it up because you get too comfortable with it. It's like people who keep lists, right? Like, cool, I keep a list, a long list, Then the list gets so long and no longer it's effective. And then you crumple it up and throw it out, start a new list, and you feel good again, right? Like, so I'm always like, yeah, I use things too to keep track of my stuff. Then I just have it. Then it's just overloaded, and I just delete the app and go take the top 5 things from there and go over here. And so I try to not. It was never really a process. It was just chip away, one day at a time. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. I got to do that. Allocation of time, schedule, calendar. You had your class calendar. You had, my lacrosse calendar, and I had the stuff that I had to go to, for the fraternity. I think, a kid that I think the best advice for anyone that's just starting college, when you go into your first semester, syllabus week, take every syllabus, look at it. This is what I need to do to get 100. Cool. Now I have 5 classes and I need to do this in 1 class, this in 2 classes, and 3 classes, and 4 classes, and 5 classes to get 100. It might not be realistic to do all of it. So there might be one class that like attendance is only 5%. So maybe like don't go to that class as much because it doesn't matter. And this class that attendance is 100, don't miss a class. And then the class that's only 5% attendance, it's only one test that's worth 80%. Like allocate all your time to spend that test and just work backwards off of that. And so I did that and just trying to, you shouldn't go to college and try to get an A in every single class. That's what I would say. Mm-hmm. Try to understand how you can keep pushing the needle and getting better across the board day by day by day. Because you'll just cripple yourself if you try to be the absolute best at everything. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, I love that.
I just don't think it's realistic or fathomable to go to college your freshman year and be like, I'm going to get an A in every class and enjoy doing it. Because one, you're not going to like every one of the classes. And so if you don't like one of them, you shouldn't spend as much time in that class as you do in the other one. And it's all hackable. Like they literally give you a piece of paper that says, this is how you get that grade. You should look at it and be like, cool, this is how I'm going to get my, A- or my B+, or I'm going to punt this class and get a C because I know that if I get a C, it's still a pass. But I really love my hospitality technology class. So I want 100 in that class, and this is how I do it.
Yeah, I think that is so key that you get a lay of the land first and then figure out how to allocate from there. And I think what students do is they don't get the lay of the land first, and that's just defense when you're in the middle of the semester trying to figure things out. And that's the exact wrong way to go about it. You need to be on offense and get a lay of the land first and then reverse engineer from there. So
that was always my favorite part of every semester. Yeah, cool.
Syllabus week.
So yeah, but for the other reason, because when I would get the syllabus, I'd be like, "You're so finished." Like this professor, like
you're going down.
Like, but the professor like hands me the syllabus, and like I'm like, cool. Like I'm gonna probably get a B in your class. Like like there's 3 classes a week. If I miss 1 a week, I can get 85% of my attendance grade. Perfect. I'm going to go one, you know, like just hacking at it that way. And I liked it that way. And then I think also realizing that humans are humans. And also a big thing that helped me in college, and I'm just going tangentially here, that my dad always told me and helped me a lot, was that you're paying to be there. 99% of the time, you're paying to be there. That teacher is essentially on your payroll.
Yeah,
Don't let that get twisted. Don't let you get so stressed out that you forget that you're paying for your education. If that's the case, right? Like, build a relationship with them. Like, get to know them. Like, it doesn't need to be like they're this almighty God and you're their student. Like, it was just, it opened my eyes and enlightened me a lot that, like, I'm allowed to miss a class because guess what? I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, and it just helped with, you know, stress and anxiety can be such a real thing. There's so much change with your freshman, sophomore year of college that you got to find a way to space yourself from it a little bit. Yeah. And me walking into class being like, dude, I'm paying you. Like, you know, like, it's not, you know, you're not paying me to be here. It's different than work, right? It's different. Like, I'm on a salary now. They can fire me.
Right. The tables are turned this time.
The school can kick me out for not being a great student. But if I'm going to be a good student, like, I'm not going to let you make me feel like a piece of shit because I didn't come to your class one time.
Right. That's right. You're there to further your own interests, your own
exactly.
career. Right. That's right. That's right.
But don't be disrespectful about it. I was never disrespectful about it. I just didn't let them be disrespectful to me.
Right.
Because a lot of times when superiors are disrespectful to you, you look inward as to why that is, and you put stress on yourself.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you got to realize that some of these college professors are trying to just put their own, you know, insecurities on their students and make them feel like, and it's an issue.
Yeah. Cool. Tyler, one last question about your college career before we transition. How important were grades to you, particularly relative to your other activities like lacrosse and being fraternity president?
They were as important as, like, that's a good question. How important were my grades to me? They were important because I wanted to feel like I was being successful. Like, they
were a proxy for your success?
It was a proxy for my own mental game. Like, I wouldn't get mad if I failed an exam that I didn't study for. I just, you know, I'd be like, you're a loser, dude. You didn't study for it. But I'm not going to, I would get bent out of shape if I really studied and didn't do as well as I wanted. That's when grades became important. But it was a really black and white view of how much effort I was putting in. And so it allowed me to benchmark against it. But, like, back to the thing, it was like, if from day one I was like, I'm probably going to get a B in this class, I was working towards that B. So it wasn't important. Like, I wasn't, like, stressing over not getting that B. But it was just, it allowed me to constantly judge my effort of output. You know, it was a clear-cut benchmark of, do you want to go for it or not? Like,
so you were fine with getting B's.
Everyone's got to ask themselves that. Like, how much are you going for it?
Yeah,
you know,
I like that.
If you want to go to college and get an A in every one of your classes, you need to realize what that means, and go for it. But, like, don't be like, I want to get all A's and then sit around and, you know, smoke weed or drink beers and play FIFA the whole time. Like, do that, but you're probably not going to get all A's. But don't hold yourself to that standard and then do that, because that's where people start getting into a lot of stress and wanting to drop out. And, you know, like, college can be amazing, but just understand that it's not the end of the world. Understand that you don't have to get all A's. Like, you're not in a success. Like, great, you got all A's, cool. Now you graduate. Now what?
Yeah. Yeah, you got to do what's right for you.
There's so much more to that. But the universities put a lot of pressure on kids that they need to get hundreds and everything, and it's just like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, cool.
What person should be getting 100 in biology and 100 in, you know, history, like, or, like, you know, archaeology or whatever? It's just like, what?
Well,
cool.
well,
what are you going for here?
Well, Tyler, you're talking to someone who did exactly that, and that's what kind of led me down this path. Was I started getting 4.0s every semester, and I'm like, wait a second, why am I not getting the results that I wanted? And it's funny that you brought up FIFA, because I watched one of my fraternity brothers who was one of the best FIFA video game players I knew on Xbox, and he was just getting all these job offers, including from Wall Street, and I didn't understand why. Right, I didn't understand what I was missing, because he did everything quote unquote wrong, and I did everything quote unquote right, and I didn't understand why he was getting the results. And so
that's me, like, because he loved what he was doing, and it showed in the way he communicated with people every day.
Yeah, and he was out there communicating with people, right? He wasn't just in the library studying biology and then switching immediately next to history, and then from there to chemistry. I mean, he was out talking to people, making real connections, doing things that actually mattered, right? Such as managing a fraternity.
Humans are humans, right?
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, when you go for an interview, like go for an interview and then think about sitting and interviewing with someone. When you leave that interview, you're going to go talk to your boy and be like, hey, that guy was kind of awkward, or like, he was really smart on paper. Like, there's all different interviews. There's written interviews. There's da-da-da. But, like, humans are humans.
Yeah, I like that. So true. So true. Cool. Tyler, let's transition to your career. So, in the fall, right after your college graduation, you began working at VaynerMedia, which is founded by the social icon Gary Vaynerchuk. So tell me how you landed that gig.
Yeah, so before that, I graduated with a hotel, restaurant, institutional management degree, long one. And it was right when fast casual was like bubbling, right? It was right kind of when Chipotle was like not at its crescendo yet, but was still coming up. And all these fast casuals were popping, and I was like, nobody goes to sit down at Olive Garden for lunch anymore. Like, you go and you walk through a line and you get your food. And so that was my whole senior year, was stuff on that. And I was like, I always had the mindset, people were going to work at Shake Shack, people were going to work at Hilton and Marriott and all these. Cool. What does the logo mean for me? And it was like, great, you're going to go work at Shake Shack, and it's going to be 7 years before, you are put through 1 year. So I met a guy named Chris Viola, who was starting a brand new fast casual concept called the Taco Truck. And I just saw it as an incredible opportunity, a young company that I was probably going to be put in a situation where if I outseated expectations, I was going to be given a lot of responsibilities that I shouldn't have at that age, right? It was always the same thing. And so I did it. I started working there. I started as a, shift leader. And then 2 months in, I became assistant general manager of the restaurant in Hoboken, while the whole time we were getting ready to launch the flagship location in Morristown, New Jersey. And when I became assistant general manager, they said, you're going to be assistant general manager of this new location. And I oversaw with the general manager the build out of the whole place, from an empty parking lot to building the training manuals to the staffing to the hiring to getting the place up and going. And then 2 months in, I just really, really, really didn't like my life at all. My schedule wasn't the same every week. I was working on Sundays, till 2 a.m. I was just whacked out from life. And I was like, I just don't know if this is what I want to be doing long term. And the day that I decided to leave that company was a Sunday of like week 4 NFL football or maybe week 6. It was like early October. And I got in the car to go to work at 5:00 on Sunday, and I started crying about my job. And I went in and I told them, I loved the guys. I loved the concept. It was everything that I thought I wanted. I just didn't like it. And I told them I want to go into marketing. I loved social. I was just an advocate, Apple follower, right? I loved tech. I loved all that. I was like, I want to go into marketing and social. My sister graduated with a marketing degree. It seemed fun. It seemed about relationships and people and service, that's kind of the core of what I believe in. And so the founder of the company introduced me to his wife, who had worked in marketing, who introduced me to a gentleman named Mickey Cloud. We had coffee there. And within 2 weeks of that whole process of me crying and quitting work, 2.5 weeks, I got an offer to come work at VaynerMedia as a community manager, entry-level employee. And the company was 260 people at that time, I think. My first day was November 11th of 2013. And that was that. And so I came to work in New York City, grew up in Montclair, New Jersey, came to work in New York City for the first day at this young, vibrant, upstart marketing agency. And the first day I walked in, the Sonos music was blaring loud, hip hop, and I had no idea who Gary was. I got the job by relationships, and I got very lucky for the opportunity. I would say not luck, because I prepared and put myself in a position to get it. But, serendipitous things happen, and, you meet people and they want to do good for you. And that's what happened. I got offered the role with no marketing background or anything other than, enjoying conversation with people.
Yeah, that's so key. And 2.5 weeks to score something like that, I think is really, really remarkable.
By all means.
Yeah. So Tyler, what was your pitch like during the interview? I mean, if you acknowledge that you didn't necessarily have what would be maybe a stereotypical profile. Yeah. So how'd you pitch yourself?
That I was curious. And it's funny, one of my most vivid memories when I was young, like 6 years old, I was over at my neighbor's house and I used to just ask questions all the time. I used to just ask questions and he'd be like, are you going to write a book one day about all these questions that you're asking me? I just was curious. And I think I had a conversation 2 days ago. Someone's like, what are the two things, if we're going to hire someone onto Gary's team, what's it going to be? And I'm like, curiosity and work ethic. And that was my pitch. Like, I love everything. I tell people that all the time. I love everything. I'm staring at a window right now and I'm like fascinated about 25 stories up in a Manhattan skyscraper, what the tech is on this window pane. Mm-hmm. I just love everything. I'm just curious about everything. And that was that, and that I'm just willing to outwork everyone.
Yeah. And so
except for my boss, which will never happen.
Right. Gary's all about putting in the work. Yeah, cool. Yeah, and I think that's so key for a lot of students, and that is work ethic and curiosity are some of the kind of foundational raw materials that employers want today. And so I think just so many folks in the workforce are willing to overlook maybe a lack of technical expertise if you can kind of bring in some of those raw ingredients into the job. I think you've demonstrated that.
Totally. I think that, when you're looking to graduate college, you should be patient. My dad always said, look, if you graduate and don't work for 3 years, you're 24. He graduated school, I think he was 27. And he's like, I'm doing pretty good now. Just like society can kill a young person's confidence that's getting ready to graduate from college. It was always whenever I was with my dad at senior year in high school, and whenever you see someone and meet them and shake their hand, they're like, oh, where are you going next year?
Yeah. And
it's like, why do I need to be going somewhere next year? And it's the same question that you ask every single senior, college graduating senior. What are you doing next year? You don't need to know. Yeah. It plays itself out if you're just a good person and want to meet people and make good connections and, again, are curious. I think a lot of people box themselves out of opportunities based on what the salary. No, I'm graduating. I'm going to make a minimum of $50,000. This place is only offering me $41,000. I'm not going to take it. You didn't even get to know the place, This place has hot lunch for free. So I'm only working at a place that serves me lunch for free. It's probably a bad barometer. I just think the not needing to take over the world the first day you're out of college and being open to trying and testing and learning and take a job for 6 months and leave it. And take a job for 6 months and leave it,
Yeah, kind of keep the optionality.
It just allows for a lot.
Yeah. Tyler, I call that what you just described, the kind of script or life is linear approach. And the idea is that society boils down life, particularly for college students, into 4-year chunks. And it starts in school, and it's like, okay, here's 4 years of high school. Okay, great. And then here's, 4 years of college. Okay, great. And then here's 4 years of what your life is supposed to look like after college. And that's supposed to be get your job and maybe buy a car and maybe buy a house in the suburbs. And it's this kind of, artificial construct that people are supposed to play inside. And it's like, wait a 100%. Second, why am I supposed to even play inside this? I don't even like this game in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think that's so key for college students is, look, exactly what you're saying. Go out and experiment and look for optionality. Look for experiences that tap into your curiosity. Look for experiences that give you some flexibility to try different things and experiment. And then use that to, engineer a lifestyle and a career that's right for you. But, you don't have to play within these kind of 4-year chunks.
100%. I always I talk to a lot of kids from my town now, or people that my mom introduces me to that are getting ready to graduate college, and you have this awesome job. I still feel weird, right? Like, I'm not totally comfortable that someone reaches out to me and asks me to be on their podcast, right? I'm like, why? But then everyone else is like, dude, you have this amazing job, right? And I'm like, but societal pressure is brutal, like really, really brutal. Like, everyone wants you to not be that good or that cool or like doing more than what they're doing. It's just tough. Like, it's really, really tough to be a senior in college and walking around your hometown because everyone in town is expecting you to take some, big corporate job. And if you don't, you're a loser.
Yeah.
One of my best friends in the entire world, he's 26, 27. And he's still figuring it out. And like, he's all good, but like this stuff, the pressure that he gets put on by everyone else is like unfair, and it's tough. Like, it's really not easy to not let that crumble you. Yeah. And fold into the 4-year plan.
Yeah.
And I was super lucky because of my parents. Like, there was just my parents and my family were quote unquote different. Like, they just did weird stuff and liked weird things, and and I just saw the admiration they got for that and the success that they still had.
Yeah, yeah. Tyler, what's it like being one of Gary's right-hand men when you're only 3-4 years removed from college graduation?
It is fun. It's interesting. It's fun. It's the best. He's the best guy in the world. He pushes me every day and our team and everyone. And like, I don't feel totally comfortable talking about myself in that role because there's so many people that matter so much to him. It's not me. I'm not like that important in that sense, but I get to meet an incredibly large amount of inspirational and intelligent and fun people that are doing cool stuff and inspiration. Like, it's amazing. I'm incredibly grateful for it, but I'm also fully aware that like I have got myself here on my own accord and worked myself to get here, and it's a lot of work, but it's the best. All my best friends, like, I just turned around, I'm looking at 3 of my best friends in the whole world.
They're in the room with you?
And we work together every day, and we love it. No, they're on the outside of this office that I'm sitting in.
Nice.
I'm looking out at Madison Square Garden in Manhattan right now in a beautiful office, and it's an opportunity that he's given me. And so the only thing that I got is to work every day to prove that I deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Tyler, one of the things I believe is that there is real power in proximity. So tell me about some of the opportunities that have come your way simply by being around Gary.
This, right? Like, I'm not confused that like a lot of things that I get, I have the Instagram name Tyler. Every time I say it to someone, like, how the hell did you get that? I'm like, well, you want me to be honest? Gary.
That was actually going to be one of my questions.
Like, I'm wearing a cool pair of K-Swiss shoes that I didn't pay for, that I have on my feet because of Gary. Like, there's so much, but at the same time, you can't go too far in that direction because I also got to keep some of my own self-identity and all that. But, I get to, the best thing is I get to meet an incredible amount of amazing people, and have everyday conversations with them. Again, humans are humans are humans are humans. I'm meeting a lot of people that society look up to as famous and this and that. Everyone's just people, I'm getting to meet a lot of them and have a lot of fun conversations. And the number one thing is I'm just getting to learn. I sit in some meetings that are like, people work their ass off till they're 50 years old to get in a room. And he's just given me an amazing amount of opportunity to listen and learn and fail and wake up the next day and do it all over again.
Yeah. So Tyler, if there's a college student out there thinking, I have opportunity through door one, which is kind of work for some corporate giant and make a nice cushy salary, but I don't really learn that much, or I can go through door number two and work for a company that might not have the big brand name, but puts me in positions to learn and potentially connect with power players at some point in my job. Which door should they walk through?
It depends, right? Like, I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew what I thought I was capable of. Like, I always struggled because a lot of times I thought I was more intelligent than my professor. That's an arrogant take. I get that. But, like, again, I just was always keen to society can control a lot of people's brains and just allow groupthink and all that. And so I could never survive in a large corporation as a middle pack employee just because I just can't stand groupthink. It just pains me. And but at the same time, there's a lot of luxuries that you get with that. Like, if you're a managing director at JP Morgan Chase right now, you're getting paid probably more than I am, and you're getting a lot of vacation, and you get home and you're probably learning how to cook, and you probably have a nice clean room, and you live in a nice apartment and all this, like, and you might want that. I don't know, but I couldn't deal with that. Like, it just wasn't me. And so I just kept trying to find opportunities back to put myself in a position that most people thought I probably wasn't deserved of. And then putting in the work to close that gap.
Yeah.
And so that was me, but I don't, there's also people that don't want that.
So you're saying working for high profile folks isn't necessarily the play for everyone.
Okay. No, I live in an apartment. I haven't cooked a meal in my kitchen in over a year.
Yeah.
Some people like cooking dinner, like facts. And I think about that a lot. I'm like, I would like to make myself a nice meal, but like, I don't. It's just, I like being here. I like working. I like being with my friends. I like going on the road, traveling. I like messing up all the time. Like, I'm just fairly deep into work right now. I like going on camping trips, but like, I also don't like the stress that comes with me going into a place where I don't have cell phone service for a day when that's what my job entails. So it's not like I wouldn't say the path that I went is for everyone, but I think that most people want to do one and end up doing the other.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think that's gold.
I think most people want the life outside of work and then think that they need to take this crazy high all-important job and then hate their life. Or, most people want to have this, all-important job and then are stuck just in corporate America in the middle and like, are filling out spreadsheets or like answering dumb emails all day.
Yeah. Now, sounds like you're really bullish on lifestyle design, Tyler. Like, figure out what kind of lifestyle you want, because that's one of the key components into, mapping out a college career.
And it took a while. Like, I went through some real stress personally of like, when I first started working for Gary, my life wasn't structured in a way that I could live that life while also succeeding at the job. And so I've gone through this transformational period over the last 2 years where it was like, cool, I'm in this position and I have crystal clear vision of what the opportunity is. But the way my life is structured at the moment, I'm going to fail at that job. And I've had very candid conversations with Gary where he was like, look, I'm giving you this opportunity and you're not taking it. Like, and that's not going to fly. And so what do you want to do? Which was the case. And so my life has changed a lot over the last 2 years of like people I see, friends that I hang out with, what I do on the weekend. Like, and I've never been happier because I wanted the one thing and I've adjusted my life to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's self-awareness. I am so bullish on self-awareness. I think that's one of the key components of college. And the faster students can figure that out about themselves, the faster they can reverse engineer a college career for themselves that makes sense in a
100%.
very individualistic sense. So, that's what it needs to be. It needs to be very personalized. So self-awareness is the gateway into that. So.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler, let's transition to the last section of the show, which is also my favorite section, and that is the rapid fire question section, where I offer up some quick hitting questions, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your answer has to be quick hitting. Sound good?
Cool. Let's go.
Okay. Tyler, the first question is there a specific career path that a college student can follow to land them where you are today?
No. Because it's all different. It's like, I just think, people ask me now, so what's next? What are you doing? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, if you asked me this 4 years ago, I wasn't going to say where I am now. I'm pretty happy with it. So, I tell people not to stress it too much. You got to go out. You got to try it. You got to take a job that you hate and quit to know that you hated it. You got to, bounce around, try different things. So I don't think there is, because it's all serendipity. There's so much serendipity in life, and you got to embrace that too.
Yeah, I love that.
Gary could have met someone. AJ could have met someone else. He interviewed 4 people. Gary's younger brother interviewed 4 different people. Like, if he just liked one of the other dudes more than me, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now. And so I just think there's a lot of serendipity to things, and you got to be willing to just try different stuff.
Yeah.
And so if that's, a career path, then so be it. But I wouldn't say there is.
Cool. Second question, Tyler. Who is the first person that comes to mind when I say the word successful?
My mother.
Why is that?
Because she has dealt with a lot in her life on a personal level, and is the most loving human I've ever met, and has raised my older sister, who's also very successful, I would say, myself, and my younger sister, who is just an absolute killer. Like, she's just one of the coolest people I know. Yeah. And so I would say my mother.
Cool. Shout out to Mom. I love it.
Yep.
Cool. Tyler, suppose you are Tyler Schmidt, the 18-year-old high school senior preparing to graduate in 4 months. But this time around, you are graduating in 2018, which is our current year here. Where are you going to concentrate most of your energy?
I would say where I concentrated it then. And that was just enjoying my life. You're going to be your own source of happiness at the end of the day. Like, don't let other things bring you down like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing. And it was funny. I went through some stuff that at the end, my freshman year in college and sophomore year, that took that away from me a little bit, and was incredibly powerful for what I am now, because that really made it obvious to me that, like, you're going to be your own source of happiness throughout your whole life, if you want to be happy.
Cool. So just embrace the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool.
And don't get too don't get too serious about anything. Like, just, it's funny, Gary says this all the time, and I'd imagine a lot of what I'm saying is like, sounds like Gary. I get it all the time. I'm like, yeah, when you spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week thinking about someone, and I look up to him, and he's successful, and a lot of people do. Like, you're going to start sounding like him, but, like, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. And so don't take it too seriously. Man. It's all good. Like, it's all good.
Tyler, what's the best lesson a teacher, a parent, or a mentor has taught you?
No matter how often you do it, it's still the same results still going to be expected of you. So I learned that from Coach Tambroni, and even Gary now, and it's the same deal. You're only as good as your last at bat. All this, like, no matter how big you get, no matter how successful you get, the second you make, if you're always making the same move, right, boom, 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 the second you make that other move, people are going to pick up on it and judge you, and that's going to be their taste in your mouth. And so, you can, all right, you show up to work at 8:45 every day. One day you show up at 9:15. Okay. But like, people aren't going to remember that you showed up at 8:45 every day. The next day they're going to be like, he's probably going to show up at 9:15. Like, and if you operate that way, it's just, don't bank on your laurels. Don't rest on your laurels. Like, you gotta be there. You gotta, it doesn't stop. You gotta keep bringing it.
Yeah. Cool. Tyler, last question for you. If you could recommend something to a college student in the form of a tweet, what would it be?
If I could tweet something, if I could tweet one thing that a college student would see, right? Like, is that what you're saying?
That's right. So a little soundbite nugget of advice for them.
Don't worry, be happy.
I like that. That's awesome. I can't imagine leaving it at a better spot than that. Tyler, this has been fun. I just love, interviewing folks like you. Where can people learn more about you and anything else you find interesting? I would say, my Instagram is @Tyler. Little plug there. And then all of Gary's stuff, I'd appreciate it if you kind of followed that and supported that. We're on a pretty fun and wild ride right now. We got a lot of stuff coming with K-Swiss, with his book, with VaynerMedia at large. On my Instagram, I'd appreciate it if you gave me a follow. Cool. With over 13,000 of them right now. Cool.
Yep.
Tyler, we'll leave it there. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Hey everyone, 3 major takeaways I want to emphasize before wrapping up. The first is what I like to call mining for gold in neglected terrain. Tyler rushed, which means applied for, a fraternity that was experiencing significant fallout from the death of a student. Rather than writing the fraternity off as finished and looking elsewhere, Tyler doubled down and saw the current challenges as an opportunity to join and make an immediate impact. That's how, as a sophomore, Tyler became president, leading an entire fraternity back from the abyss and meeting with powerful decision makers on campus along the way. As a teenager. In addition, these situations forced Tyler into circumstances of leadership and decision-making under pressure, a skill set that has massively paid off throughout Tyler's short career. The second thing I want to emphasize is Tyler's networking abilities. Tyler sent a cold email to the Penn State lacrosse coach looking for ways to help out, which set the groundwork for Tyler plugging into a Division I athletic program. That's it. One cold email. Importantly, in making this connection with the lacrosse coach, Tyler focused on 3 things in particular. First, Tyler emphasized a willingness to help. Tyler came asking to give, not asking to take. That's critical and was the gateway into the lacrosse program. Second was Tyler's demonstrated interest in lacrosse. Tyler emphasized how he had a passion for lacrosse and was interested in plugging into the program. That's how the lacrosse coach knew Tyler was serious and legit. Third was Tyler's initiative. Tyler sought out the lacrosse coach and took specific steps to get face time. This initiative isn't always easy. Tyler wrote in his journal, "Make yourself uncomfortable," but that's what it takes to meet with influential people. Students always ask me how to network. They think that networking is just going up to someone and asking for a job. It's not. As Tyler demonstrates, by fusing together these 3 elements of a willingness to help, a demonstrated interest, and initiative, students can lay the great foundation for success. The third thing I want to emphasize is how Tyler pitched himself. After graduation, Tyler went from quitting his job to, within 2.5 weeks, scoring a job with VaynerMedia. How did Tyler do this? Of course, Tyler had already built a great network and crafted a stellar resume by the time he got to Gary. Those lessons were demonstrated in the previous 2 takeaways I highlighted. Those items got Tyler to the interview, but they didn't seal the deal. Tyler still needed to close. And in order to close, Tyler pitched two critical elements that employers in the new economy love. The first is curiosity, and the second is work ethic, traits which were evident in Tyler just from speaking with him. In fact, when I interviewed Tyler late at night, Tyler was still at the office. There's the work ethic. And Tyler commented on things that many people would find trivial, like the technology in the skyscraper's window pane. There's the curiosity. Students need to know that employers today love curiosity and work ethic. And it's no surprise that by highlighting these two qualities, Tyler scored an elite job with Gary Vaynerchuk. I really appreciate Tyler coming on the podcast, and I know that everyone out there can learn a ton of lessons from him. To learn more about Tyler, follow him on Instagram @Tyler. Yes, that's right. It's just @Tyler. Or check out everything VaynerMedia to see the latest happenings in the world of Gary Vaynerchuk. That's all for now. I'll catch you all next time.
If you want more Hackiversity and achieving more by doing less in college, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or grab the book on Amazon. For the show notes and the latest on Hackiversity, check out KyleWiney.com. Don't forget to follow Kyle on Twitter @KyleWiney and on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hackiversity. Till next time, happy hacking.